Hello, I'm Leah from Patchwork Picnic, and this tutorial is to help you get your points super sharp when you're making your stars. I've been doing a lot of star work recently with 1-inch 60-degree diamonds and also some 45, so I feel like I've really knuckled down on technique and I want to share that with you today.
So our paper piece is lovely and crisp with sharp corners. But after we've wrapped the paper shape with fabric, the shape is more like this. The corners are blunt and rounded. When we sew these together around the edge, we lose the sharpness of the points and we tend to misalign them. Plus, if you create your stars in two halves and join, any misalignment is heightened. To fix this, we sew as close as we can to the original paper shape to remove the width of the fabric. Then we attach each diamond individually. Let's look at number 3. When you're lining up your new diamond, line up the central point so it's touching the point of number 1. Then the diamond you're attaching your new diamond to, in this case number 2, will develop a lovely sharp point. So here we have diamond number 4, and we will line it up with diamond 3, but the middle point will touch diamond 2. This means there's a very slight overlap of your shapes. Then, starting in the middle of the corner, about 1 millimetre in, you sew across, joining our 2 central reference points, rather than just sewing through a few threads along the top of the shape. When you open it back out, you will see the one you've just sewed doesn't yet have a neat point, but the point of diamond number 3, the one you just attached it to, will. The point of the one we just sewed, diamond number 4's point, will look like it's sticking out past the middle of the second diamond, but when you join that to the next one using the same method, it will develop the same neat point like the others.
So I'm going to start off by wrapping this diamond. I always start at the widest angle, and I always thread baste at the back. Couple of stitches to start. Okay, then always turn the diamond in the same direction. This means that the tails, which are these fellas here, they all face the same way, and when you join them in a star they form a rosette sort of appearance, and so they sit much better next to each other. Okay, so I turn my shape in a clockwise direction. Okay, clockwise again. So you know when you've carried on turning them in the right direction, because when you've finished basting, or either gluing or sew baste, your tails face in the opposite direction. That is what you want. So I've got all my bits ready for my star, and you can see the tails all point the same way. This is also the same for the inside, and as you see when we finish, it makes a nice little rosette. So I've got my beige thread in my needle, and I'm just going to show you something which I've learned recently, how to marry your thread, which just stops this end bit getting tangled. So what you do is, it's a bit tricky, is you have to actually thread your needle straight through the thread. Can you see how that's gone through the actual thread? So you do that once, and then you do it again. I think you can move it backwards and forth, but I just think it's an achievement to get it through. So that's it done a second time. I'll just do that a third time. So it's pierced the actual thread 3 times, and then we push that all the way back through, so the needle has gone through all of those knots, and then you just pull it So you can see it's got a smaller tail, okay, but it's got no knots, so it passes through just as easily as it would normally. Okay, so that is how you marry the thread to the needle. So I'm just going to select these two guys here. I'm going to start off by lining them both up on top of each other. Now what you have to remember when you're doing your sewing is the point where you're sewing becomes the cutoff for what you see on the right side. And to get nice points, you have to just very slightly overlap at the point. And then when you get the third one in place, you make those points basically touch. That way, the one in the middle forms a nice point. And this is the same principle you have to move as you move around the shape. You try and aim for these points, these two here, those are the ones that are touching. And the way you do that is by sewing in the middle of the one you're attaching it to, right at the point. So don't keep to the edge because you'll keep this thickness. You sew in the middle of this one into the middle of this one, and as you do that all the way around, you get the nice points. So let's make a start, lining those up. I'm going to go through under here because I'm trying to neaten up the back of my quilts. Move those out of the way. Right, and then you basically sew across as you would normally sew across until roughly about halfway, where you start angling the middle of this point, which we can tell is roughly the middle of this round bit here, and that lines up the middle of this bit. Okay, so around about here, I'm just going to open it out. You can see that this is still nice and level, which is great. And now at this point here, right at the tip there, I want to line up with this point here. So we turn that over. That point there will be about here. So that is what we're aiming for. So you keep that in place, clenched quite firmly in your fingers as you move towards the point. Thread is perhaps a little bit longer. Okay, so as we're moving closer, this is where I think it's very important to have a thread that matches the colour, because you might start seeing it if you're not right at the very edge. Okay, so here we go. Here is my middle one, and that is going to go in to the middle of that one. Okay, just do another one. Okay, and then I'm just going to put my needle through. Ooh. There's our first two. So I'm going to get my third one, do the same thing, line it up on this side, just move the tail out of the way. Okay, so ultimately this middle bit here will need to go right up next to this one here. This is the one that you're butting it up next to. That way this one will have a real nice neat point. Okay, so I think I found my marker, so I'm going to go in there. Slightly further away than I would be sewing normally. Couple in the same spot. Just go through, and then I can carry on all the way across to the end. So just getting to the end. Again, go through the middle. This will help make them nice and pointy when you're joining to other diamonds around the edge later. So there you go. You can see that this one now has a very nice point to it. These two carry on a little bit further up, but that's okay because when we apply the same rule to these, by having the other one slightly overlap, those will become nicely pointed too. So I'm going to keep going around, line that up. to end up. So this here will be the middle, and we want that to line up with this one that's not next to it, but one away. So we want it to line up with about here. So just make sure that that is roughly lined up, which it basically is really by just having it lined up along the edge. But as you get closer, you just want to make sure that you're starting to aim for sewing into the middle of the point. Okay, so we're getting to the middle, so they're just going in a little tiny bit further, so that's in the middle there, and then so there's the middle there. So I'm going to put that in like this, try and show you how this one you want to go into almost in between them, but that's basically the middle of that point there. So you see how it's gone so close to that one, it makes a point. There we go, just one left, looking quite nicely pointy. So as we've got halfway, just going to check where we're aiming for. Okay, so I'm going to make sure that it's lined up with the middle of this one and the middle of this one here. I'm just going to fold this over so I can see what's going on here. Okay, so we know that our point is going to be in the middle here. So actually I'll just do one more stitch. So that one goes in the middle. Okay, and then we want to make sure Okay, that it's basically touching the one next to it. Oops. Right, it's going to go in the middle of that one there. Okay. So look, got a nice sharp one there, and then this next one will be joining this up here. So I'm going to fold that in half. Okay, so this time I'm going to go in through the middle of this one. I'm going to go in through the middle of that one. A bit more in the middle. Sneaky peek. It's looking pretty good, but it is important, I think, to get a thread which matches the fabric, because using this method you wouldn't be able to get away with flat back stitch. You might be able to get away with using a ladder stitch, but in the middle I think it would be difficult. Okay, there we go. My Curious Jeremy project, which is going to go around about there. So I hope you found that useful and it's given you the confidence to go ahead and really get those points as good as they can be. Leave me any feedback in the comments below, and I hopefully see you back here soon.